You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
What's good, everyone? Presented by Betano. It's time for the Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga, of course, joined alongside co-host Anthony Stewart, getting set for another busy weekend for the Toronto Maple Leafs. What's going on, Stewie?
I'm doing well. It's a little bit snowy here in Toronto. We're going to get snowed in. We have a snow weekend coming up. What's going on?
I don't know, man. It's sort of fun. Oh, wow, it is. I don't go outside till like 3 o'clock Eastern every day, so I never know what's going on with the weather. And it's funny you say that because last night I booked a dinner for tonight, not knowing there was like inclement weather coming. So we're getting some snow here, eh?
Yeah, make sure you get some Uber Eats or something like that. I wouldn't want to be walking there with those dancing shoes that you have on, eh? You don't want to be – you're going to have wet foot, trench foot for the whole entire weekend.
I got a dinner set up on King West, and I'm not missing it. I don't know what this restaurant is, man, but they had a $50 cancellation policy or something like that. So if I don't go, I'm fucked. I got to go.
Oh, that's good. But for me, I got hockey this weekend. My daughter's got a tournament. Hopefully the games aren't canceled. But again, when you're snowed in, you get to watch the good game of hockey. So I'm sure we're going to catch a lot of games this weekend.
Yep, you're right. And by the way, yeah, I would be getting DoorDash if I ordered. We don't know what Uber Eats is on this show. DoorDash would be the route I would go.
DoorDash, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. You see it behind it. So I would order food from DoorDash if I elect to go that route. Looking forward to that. The opening part here is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece Program and an unbeatable pricing policy. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. And actually, a man who knows a thing or two about rings. One with the Washington Capitals a couple of years ago. Tom Wilson's in some hot water here, man. We talked about this yesterday. I wasn't sure what was to come of it, maybe because it was the Maple Leafs perspective. And I'm like, well, they get nothing. But it looks like Wilson's going to get a pretty damn long extension here. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's weird because again, I'm good friends with Tom Wilson, and I actually sent him a note saying like, the initial thoughts were, yes, you got to be a little bit more careful with your stick. But I think majority of the fans and the people watching this didn't think it was probably going to be a suspension at all. And it's really, really tough, I believe, when you have a forward in front of you to have one hand to really purposely try to come in and get a guy in the face. I think it's accidental. I think you could tell by his natural reaction afterwards to grab him and say, hey, man, sorry about that. But you do have to be a little bit more careful in your stick. So I'm a little bit surprised that it is a in-person suspension. I can understand, yes, we want to get away from these type of plays and giving them a game. But, there were some people well respected in the media that thought it was going to be nothing. They thought it was going to be a fine. But, for me, I could have the biggest beef with somebody on the ice. The last thing I'm going to do is purposely stick them in the face like that. I can understand sometimes with the cross checks getting up. I can understand, that maybe a butt end accidentally, but I wouldn't have it in me to have an opponent, 2-3 feet from me and try to swing my stick and get them in the face. So yes, he's got to be a little bit more careful. I think if the shoe was on the other foot, we'd be not really talking about it. But I think the fact that it is Tom Wilson, we got to throw the book at him. We got to go. He does have history. But for me, it's a careless play. But is it worth an in-person hearing to possibly get 5 or more games? I don't think so.
Of course, I said extension. I mean suspension. I disagree with the fact that I think there's a precedence there with the player. It's Tom Wilson. So I think you throw all the benefit of the doubt out the window. Like I said this on yesterday's show. And that's why I think they're overreacting. Like I think if they underreacted, people would be like, well, like it's Tom Wilson. Like I know he's been better the last couple of years in terms of his behavior, but like a guy, especially like this, it would be like Matt Cook in his peak suspension era, like doing something and us like turning the other cheek to it. I just think because it's Tom Wilson, it has to be amplified a bit. I don't know if you agree with that.
I think so. I agree a little bit, but a lot of people behind the scenes probably don't even understand that a lot of social equity that Tom Wilson has. He's a well-respected teammate, and guys hate to play against him, but guys love him as a person. And again, guys battle, and I use the prime example, Wayne Simmons and Wilson. They fought many times, but they're training partners in the summer. So when you're on the ice, yes, he's earned a living playing a certain way. Yes, he's crossed the line a couple times, but naturally, the players, I believe, give him the benefit of the doubt because they know generally he's a good guy. Yes, sometimes he crosses the line. So for me, yes, there is accountability, saying you do have a history, and yes, you have to be accountable to that. But to say, hey, man, we're going to give you 6 games for a play, if Crosby did it or McDavid did it, well, we're probably not going to be looking at it twice. So, yes, does it look accidental? Yes, it could be. He does have history. I can understand there being some repercussions, but for me, 5, 6 games, looking from it objectively, I think it's a little bit excessive. I'm not sure about you.
How much do you think he gets?
I say 3.
Like, let's not forget Washington in proximity to NYC is pretty close, so maybe they went ahead and did that anyways. But you say 3, you think it's gonna be under 5?
Yeah, I think he'll explain his way out of it.
I think
And
he's
he
getting
did
7 or
say
8.
he apologized, and Gregor did mention, yeah, no, don't worry about it.
Oh,
That's
okay,
that's
so
my inside take. So
Marty McSorley apologized too.
yeah. So you think it's gonna be 7 or 8? I don't think so. We'll see. At the end of the day, we'll see. But again, I'm trying to look at it as objectively possible. As again, I am friends with Tom Wilson. This is a Leaf show. I am a Toronto sports fan, but if it's not Tom Wilson, are we looking at it with this fine tooth comb or this big of a microscope? I say no, but I do understand from the Leafs perspective, you do not want to be hitting guys in the face with the stick. You want to be taking away headshots. You want to be doing that. So I understand. If he gets 8, am I going to be, doing a 12 paragraph
You might.
article? No. A tweet? No. I'm like, hey, then the rules, I guess we got to adjust.
Man, I don't know how you defend that. Like, if you're Tom Wilson's camp, you better have some smart legal people beside you. I just don't know how you defend that. Like, he hit him right in the chops, and there wasn't really a response to Noah Gregor, and then he apologizes after, which I think makes him look like a bigger idiot. I don't know. I don't know what he was trying to accomplish or do. And last time I checked, you have to have control of your stick. I just think he's going to pay for his sins again.
Yeah, if he does, and again, so I'm not trying to explain my way out of it, but if I give a guy a tap like that, maybe I'm trying to get his attention, get him on the shoulders. But again, for me, a guy could hit me from behind. I wouldn't have it in me to come from behind and swing my stick in his face. I again, maybe we're built differently. Maybe that's why he's playing, and I'm sitting here talking about it. But a guy could do the most egregious thing to me on the ice. I would not have that in me to do that on purpose.
Yeah, some of us would, some of us wouldn't. Again, we'll agree to disagree.
The
It's
Islander
Tom
fans
Wilson.
would do that to you if they saw you in
Oh,
DBS
yes. Yeah.
Arena. They would get you.
I kid you not. Thursday night was a memorable one for me because the Islanders pissed away their playoff chances. It's going to be a long spring ahead for your boy Kevin Conley. That's too bad, formerly of Entourage. There's just a lot of soul searching. They brought in Patrick Waugh. It didn't work out, but again, feeling much better about this Maple Leafs team right now. And again, that was sort of the backlash, the fallout of Tom Wilson and the slash. We didn't expect much from it, but an in-person hearing coming, I guess, as early as today at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. That would be great. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer. For a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off, up to $10 in value, and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more. When you download the DoorDash app, enter code NATION25. That's code NATION25. All in uppercase for that, by the way, for 25% off your first order with DoorDash. Offer valid in Canada, subject to change. Terms apply. So getting set for another back-to-back this weekend, Stewie. First and foremost, what were your thoughts on the first 2 games of the leg this week, Philadelphia and Washington?
Well, quick question. Do I get that discount as well too, even though I'm a host? Because I'm in need of some DoorDash. Let me know.
If you're a first-time user, you get 25% off your first
Well,
order.
no, okay. Can I make a fake account? But again, we'll talk about that.
Okay, maybe.
We'll talk about that. Maybe offline. But again, these are sort of the dog days of the season. For the Toronto Maple Leafs and the league. I say game 60 to 80 is just so tough, and it's easy to scrutinize. But that's where the term "what a league" is for the NHL, because it's so tough mentally. And there's going to be times now where you are, doing well in games and you're finding a way to give away points and find ways to do that. So, starting with, the Philadelphia game, down 3-0, finding a way to battle back. And then, with that as well, it's not bad. It's not bad. But I like the way that they responded against Washington. And especially with that, Why it's important is everybody is getting involved. Yes, we understand there's the Austin Matthews show with scoring 57 goals, but you're seeing why they're bringing in guys like Domi and Bertuzzi. They're now earning their keep right now. And I'm looking at it right now. Bertuzzi, 7 points in his last 10 games. Domi, 9 points in his last 10 games. So when they brought these guys in, it was to show up when the games matter, game 60 to 80, and in the playoffs. So they're coming as advertised. So what I like about this team has to make a run. You're going to need 4 lines. You're going to need 60 performing at a high level. It's not just the regular suspects. But penalty kill struggling. They're missing their top player in Mitch Marner. And we're going to get into his injury a little bit later. But I like the fact now, if these other guys weren't going, the narrative of this group is going to be, do they have enough to make a run? Because they only have Austin Matthews going. Well, Tavares was struggling. What's going on with Nylander? So the narrative is this group looks like they're built for the playoffs because they have a group of contingent of players that are performing and showing up every night. And I like that. So right now it's not about the wins and losses. Are they competing, especially teams being special? Are they in a lot of these games? Are they finding ways to win games or finding ways to lose? And I think right now it's a lot more positives than negatives with this group.
A lot about the process too, which I think you're bang on about. I think even a month ago we were talking about how if the core 4 didn't score, they didn't win hockey games. But now tenfold that has changed, where it's like the depth scoring is really elevated and helped out the core 4 players, which again hasn't really been spoken about, right? And I think that's a positive development. Everything you just mentioned on Domi and Bertuzzi specifically, and obviously the emergence of Bob McMahon the last couple months has been fantastic for this team. But I think it brings a different layer, Stewie, to this Maple Leafs team when they can roll 4 lines consistently and they can get a bit of offense from all 4 lines, right? It really opens up the fountain. And obviously it's harder to game plan around that when you got other threats on your roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And I go back to my days, with the Florida Panthers. I'd always get sent down and come back to Rochester Americans. And Clark MacArthur would call me the ghost of Christmas past because I'd come back with zeros. And he'd be like, ooh, the ghost is back. Because I had 0 goals, 0 assists, 0 penalty minutes. So that was the case with a lot of this group for the previous seasons. Their bottom 6 not performing, but guys are putting up numbers that aren't just the regulars, right? So that is the sign of they have a group now that is going to perform at a high level in the playoffs. And I'm looking at it in the playoffs now. It's game 6. You can't get scoring. It's tight checking. Who's going to be the guy that scores that big goal? And in years past, it's going to be Nylander, Matthews, JT, or Marner. But look at it this year. You're seeing Bobby McMahon come in, kill some penalties, be a threat on shorthanded as well. You're seeing Gregor's speed. Kampf is playing some good hockey. Nick Robertson, if he gets the puck below the dots, he's putting the puck in the net. Nyes can get to the net and tip some pucks home too. So there's a plethora of players, a plethora of guys that are knowing their role, outgrowing their role, and performing at a high level. That's the key for playoffs, having that variety. And I think that's what makes this team different. When people ask, hey, what's different than past years? There's more guys stepping up to the plate.
Man, are you seeing what Nashville's been doing? They're 14-0-2 in the last 16 games, and you can't help but chuckle if you're a Leafs fan and see who's on that roster with Luke Schenn and Ryan O'Reilly specifically. It's like, man, that team is really, really committed to themselves right now. The season in general has been really, really strong, but they're playing some awesome hockey. Like they pulled out a win against Florida last night.
Yeah. So is Toronto able to cancel a big concert that they're not allowed to go to? Because that was sort of been the turning point for that group. And, when they went to Vegas, they canceled the U2 concert. But I think what separates Nashville is they know they don't have the talent of some of these other teams. So they have to go above and beyond for their systems and their culture. Right. And that's one of the main reasons why they brought in O'Reilly and Schenn, just because of what they bring in to the game on a daily basis. O'Reilly is on the ice after practice, working on skills with the young guys, getting better, working on his faceoff, working on the fine, minute details of the game. Schenn is another guy that puts in the work as well. So am I surprised? Yeah, because those numbers are pretty heavy there. But let's not forget, they have Philip Forsberg, they have Yossi, and they have one of the best goaltenders in the league in Soros. So that's the recipe for success in the playoffs. So, if I'm a Vancouver or, one of these teams or Vegas, do I really want to be playing them in the first or second round? The answer is probably no. And again, they're in the Central, so a Winnipeg or Dallas.
Yeah, it's going to be Winnipeg, Dallas, or Colorado, or
Yeah,
Vancouver that takes on
yeah.
Nashville, and that's probably the one team I don't want to play right now in the Western Conference in general. Like you hit the nail on the head. They got the number one D in Roman Yossi. They got the number one goaltender in UC Saros. They're playing with an abundance of confidence. Andrew Brunette has done a tremendous job with that team, and obviously a couple of former Leafs on that roster. It's sort of funny too. Like, so you watch that game on Thursday. They beat Florida, and it's been consistent for the last month and a half that the Leafs are probably inevitable to face the Boston Bruins in the first round. But then, Stu, you look at the standings, there's like 12, 13 games remaining, and Boston is 3 points up on the Florida Panthers, which tells us we want Florida. Start that chant again, buddy.
No, I don't want to start that chant. But again, to be the best, you got to beat the best. So whether you play in the first round or second round, I don't think it really matters. But Florida does. And just to play devil's advocate here, they do have 2 games in hand here. So we'll look at maybe the strength of schedule, but I anticipate the Florida Panthers to, probably end up in first place in the division when it's all said and done. But who do they want to play? If I'm Toronto, my mentality is it doesn't matter. We have to focus on being the best version of themselves. And I honestly believe that this Leafs are the best version of themselves where, yes, they're getting the depth scoring, but Austin Matthews and Nylander and Marner, they have the ability to take over the series, to take over a series. You have the two-headed monster in net, Samsonov and Wall, pushing each other, and the D collectively as a group, they have 7, 8 guys, 9 guys that can step in. That could be a recipe for success. So honestly, we saw Boston get upset last year in the first round. Yeah, Toronto may be the underdog against a couple of these teams in the playoffs, but if they are playing at the best versions of themselves, I like them more than any one of these teams in the division because they have that offensive firepower. If their special teams are special, they're getting solid, not spectacular goaltending. I honestly believe they could beat either of those teams in 7 games.
This is probably not a hot take, but I think Vegas or Florida, because of how much hockey they've played in the last year, one of those 2 teams at least will lose in the first round. If Vegas even gets in, like they're fighting for their playoff lives. Another big time victory for them last night against the Seattle Kraken. But that's just sort of my my mild take, I guess we'll call it, because I think you play a lot of hockey, and at some point in time, it's going to catch up to you. And maybe the Florida Panthers have peaked too early this season. They've dropped 3 in a row. A 3-0 loss to the Nashville Predators on Thursday night. So on Wednesday, we saw the return of Connor Timmins, Stewie, to the Maple Leafs lineup, +1, 16-33. That was like his first game in 2 months. He was like out of sight, out of mind with mono, but back in the mix. Do you see a pathway where Connor Timmins could be involved in a conversation at the very least to sneak into a top 6 role for the Maple Leafs?
I think it's going to be tough. But again, I think we can all agree if this team is going to go on an extended run, it's going to be more than 6D that are going to be the go-to guys. You're going to have to be bringing in other guys that can step in, maybe need a little bit more offense, maybe need a little bit more defensive stalwartness with Benoit. Gio might, I see him playing a role as well too. So for Timmins, I think you know what you're going to get. He's a guy that makes a good first pass, gets the puck out of the zone, but he can put up some offense. He can be a secondary guy on the power play. So if you need that offense and you're pairing him with a guy that can really insulate him on the defensive end, he can be an effective player. So, that's where I'm sort of upset of his development over the years. Just let him get out there and let him cook. But he's sort of in that same boat as Nick Robertson, where just when he's about to maybe get over the hump, you saw it in years past where he's had like 5 points in 7 games and then an injury happens or he gets sick or something happens. So I think one of those guys, he's just sort of a victim of his own circumstance. But you need offense. You need guys that can put the puck in the net and make plays. He does make that good cross seam pass. He can make a good first pass. I think you're going to need a guy like that if you're going on an extended run. I could see him being on the outside looking in. But if you need that extra offensive punch, maybe Liljegren struggling, maybe on the power play or struggling to get offensively, maybe he takes a break, you put Timmins in. But again, the one thing I think we can all agree on is Benoit. He is, I think he is a staple in this lineup. I saw him, I think it was in the Philly game, chase down one of the forwards that had a breakaway after they just got blown by a couple of shifts before. He could skate. He can play heavy. He's earned his keep. And I understand some other guys getting an opportunity, but I think Benoit is going to be on the inside when it's all said and done.
The guy's a staple. Like, I don't know how he goes from like a press box guy. Like he's the number 2 defenseman behind Morgan Riley. Maybe it's sad to say that, but like he has been such an impressive story. And for some reason, he was riding pine for like a week, and it made absolutely no sense. He came back in the lineup, and surprise, surprise, they win the hockey game. Since we're on the topic, I think it was long overdue on TJ Brody. He finally sits. I said this the last couple of days. I would stay consistent with this. I would do the whole Ilya Samsonov full reset approach. Having said that, hearing Sheldon Keefe's comments the other night, it did feel and sound like a bit of a one-off, like a one-night reset type thing, which I'm not crazy about. But how do you feel about the situation?
Well, I think the key to Brody was not noticing him at all the years that he's been here.
Yep.
And that's
True
sort of
though.
been the
Yeah.
ultimate compliment. So I think he's been noticeable for the wrong reasons the last, again, people are going to say a couple months, but I'd say a couple of weeks. But let's not forget, he's been a soldier for this team, for the years that he's been here, and he's really solidified that top four defense. So I think he's played a lot of minutes, a lot of heavy minutes. He's been relied upon. And, I use the comparison in Edmonton with Darnell Nurse. Nurse was overused. He was, making a lot of mistakes, but once they brought in Ekholm, that really relieved him of his duties where he didn't really have to step up and perform at that high of a level. So I think for him, I've seen some of the numbers when he's pairing with other guys, he's not, they're not doing as well, but he is a stalwart on the back end. His decision-making's been off a little bit. I've seen him jump in some plays where I sort of scratched my head a couple times, but he is a solid guy. And remember, he's been playing on his off wing as well, too, as a defenseman. That's tough as well. But I think the key to this is that competition, knowing that you're not 100% safe. So I think now with this reset, watching a game or two in the press box, it's really going to help reset his game. But if you're telling me here that this team's going to go and win the Stanley Cup or make the Stanley Cup final, and TJ Browney's not in your top 5 or 6, that's a problem, because I don't think those other guys are built for a 4 round playoffs without him being in there. So I think, the reset. But again, he's got to get back to being unnoticeable, just doing those little small details that don't stand out on the game sheet. He's been a little bit too noisy as of late, so I think that reset will help him. But he's got to be a top 4 guy on this team to be for.
Oh, he's so important, and
Yeah.
I think it has to be Operation Get Brody Right with the last 14 games of the regular season getting set for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Because I couldn't agree more. Like, they're cooked. If TJ Brody can't find his game to at least a level where he can be a guy who's routinely in and a mandatory look in that 6, then they're in big time trouble. I just don't think they have the manpower, the firepower to do it depth wise. Like, they need Brody to play like the guy he is and has been in the past. And I think to your point about him being very noisy, it's like similar to me like Joel Edmondson. If I don't notice Joel Edmondson, he's having a good game. And that was the thing I always bring up with TJ Brody early on in his career, specifically with Calgary, first couple years with Toronto. You never notice the guy. And for this type of defenseman, that's the best part about them. When you start to notice them, it starts to get a bit scary. And that's sadly what's happened the last couple of years here with Brody.
Yeah, but I can understand, for him, right? He doesn't have a goal this year in 66 games. So he's probably trying a little bit too hard.
Sure.
But I think maybe the pressure of the market or the pressure of what's on, at stake for this group, right? He probably wants to perform at a high level, but I think that's sort of the key to being a solid pro is sometimes less is more. And I think he's lost that at times but I think it's for him, it's not due to a lack of effort. It's trying too hard. And, I mentioned that those last couple of games, I'm seeing him, jump in rushes, and there's no one, there's no F3 for him, and he's just activating at the wrong time. So am I saying, is he not fitting into the system? No, but I think he's just trying a little bit too hard. So if I'm Sheldon Keefe, the reset is good because it puts you on notice. Hey, I got to get back to being the best version of myself. And, for him, he can finish the year without 82 games without a goal. If he's doing those other things that he did perfectly the last couple of seasons, I don't think anyone would complain that he didn't have one goal, because he's one of those guys, boxes guys out, plays physical, can make a pass, has a good gap, has a good stick. He's a solid pro. And I think they need him to be at his best if they plan on making a run.
Stu, right away you bring up that point. Do you remember Morgan Riley's regular season last year?
Yep. I think we were packaging him out of town. We're looking at the buyout. We're looking at cap friendly. We were like, I remember the takes. I remember all the hot takes there.
He was absolutely atrocious for a good chunk of last season, but some people don't remember that because he was incredible in the playoffs. He's been great in the regular season, and that's a thing of the past. So to your point, I think that's the hope with a guy like TJ Brody is maybe the reset helps. Look at Samsonov as a perfect example of that. And number two, maybe it just helps with getting his mind back in where it needs to be ahead of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And if you get Brody to play the way he's been playing, prior to the last couple of years, I think you're onto something on that back end. But as you mentioned earlier on, like the whole Mitch Marner thing, I think is really, really fascinating, where there hasn't really been much conversation. Yesterday marked the 2-week mark since he last played a game, of course, getting hurt against the Boston Bruins. Time's ticking, man. We're less than a month away from the Stanley Cup playoffs. By my math, we're starting either the 19th or the 20th of April, which, again, the clock is ticking against Mitch Marner right now.
Yeah. And again, I'm sure there's some frustrations. We heard that there's maybe a little bit of a setback, but that is the one injury where there's no definite timeline. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 3 weeks, it could be 6 weeks. And anyone that's had a high ankle sprain, they know there's no real definite timeline. And it's one of those things where one day you could be feeling amazing. Hey, let me go on the ice. And then something happens, a little tweak or a little bump in the road. And now you're set back by a couple days. So I think for him, just, getting that rest and understanding like, hey, you know what, you got to get to 100% because again, this team is most likely going to make the playoffs. Yes, I know he wants to probably hit 100 points, which is probably not attainable at this point in the season, but they're going to need him for a playoff run. So would I be rushing him back to try to get in an extra, 3-4 games? No, I would rest him because coming from someone that's had that injury, it is painful. Even when you're deemed healthy, the pain is there. And it's like, I'm getting like pains right now thinking about what I had to go through with my high ankle sprain. My brother had one and he missed 8-9 weeks. I think I missed 6 weeks. It's a tough injury to diagnose, but know when that timetable is. So I know some of the fans are thinking, what's going on? Is it something more? It's just these injuries are tough to gauge. But what you don't want is him coming back at 60-70%, because if you re-aggravate that, you're done for the year and it's a total different conversation.
Yeah, I always remember when I got mine. People hate when I bring up my beer league, but I got tripped a couple years back, and it's when they lost to Boston. What year was it? Like
2012, I think it was.
No, the next one
2013
where
or
they lost.
14. 14?
It was more. It was like 17-8, something like that, a couple years back, and it happened. And that's the one lasting memory. The first being like I got really fat because you can't do anything, and number two, you don't have the training staff of professional teams. Like it took like a good maybe 5-6 months for me to feel okay. And the worst thing is like probably came back too early, try to play some softball, and you can sprain it again. Like, and that's my concern. I think you look at examples too. They've dealt with it with Liljegren. They've dealt with it with Joseph Wall, and I know they're calling it mild. They can call it everything they want. Everybody reacts differently to this injury, and I've been steadfast since day one. I'm more concerned than most people because the clock is ticking, and Mitch Marner is so vital to this team.
Yeah, so we're going to look at it a glass half full, scenario here. And yes, he is an integral part of this team. He's a big part of this group. But what it has done now, it's forced Sheldon Keefe to sort of now see what works and see what doesn't work with lineups, right? Again, I think you were calling for Domi maybe playing on the top line and Bertuzzi to get them out of the funk 2-3 months ago. And now look what they've been doing since Marner's been out, right? Other
Yeah.
guys have gotten an opportunity. I think that's the mentality you have to have, next man up mentality. But let's not mince words here. If they're going on a run, yeah, Mitch Marner, they need him at 100%. They need him performing at a high level. But at this point of the season where you're comfortably in the playoffs, I think I could say that you're able now to have that ability to mix up some lines, give some other guys a penalty kill opportunity, move guys up and down the lineup, be a little bit creative, see what works and see what doesn't, not having to worry about, oh man, our season might be on the line. So I think that's the one positive this group can take out of it, saying, hey, Marner's been gone, but since he's been gone, look at the other guys now that have stepped their game up in their absence, because again, in playoffs, it's a war of attrition. There are going to be injuries. There's going to be guys that aren't playing at a high level. Other guys have to step up. So if I'm Sheldon Keefe, I'm saying, hey, yeah, it sucks that Marner's out, but we have to look at the positive part of it. And hey, our team is rounding out into proper form here.
Got a feel for him, man. Like all that guy wants to do is get to the 100-point mark, and he just can't get there. Like this felt like it was going to be the year. He has been a monster before he got
100-point
hurt.
mark
No,
or $100 million mark?
both, probably both. That's a really good question, and we'll find out maybe as early as this summer. But can't get to 100 points again, it seems. This segment is brought to you by Tim Hortons. Roll Up to Win is back for Tim's 60th anniversary to celebrate their big year. You can win some big prizes like an all-electric Volkswagen ID4, a sun-soaked Hilton getaway, and cash with a daily jackpot of $10,000. Played today on the Tim's app. So Matthews against McDavid. The numbers are sort of similar. Matthews has 12 goals, 7 assists, 19 points in 18 career games against Edmonton. McDavid has 11 goals, 21 assists, 32 points in 22 games against Toronto. First and foremost, what does your Hart Trophy ballot look like right now, Stewie?
Ooh, well, again, I saw you Xing and tweeting about it last night that Kucherov has 15 points in his last 4 games, and he's flirting right now with 140 points. So if he's getting that, and he's 40 points up on second place in his team, maybe even more. I think Kucherov is that guy, but again, McKinnon's playing at a high level right now too. So I think we can agree that it's Kucherov, McKinnon, and 2-horse race. And then you can either decide whether it's McDavid or Matthews. If Matthews scores 70 goals or McDavid gets 100 assists, but Kucherov's just playing on a whole different level. He's putting up points. He's collecting cookies, power play, 5-6 points a night. Right now, I have Kucherov. But again, if I'm now looking for a 7-game series, who do I want in the playoffs? McKinnon, just what he does and elevates his game at both ends of the puck, but just scoring those goals at the most proper time, putting his team on the back, going end to end, doing what he wants. McKinnon is on a whole different level, I think, in the playoffs right now too. So there's a difference between MVP and Conn Smythe, which I think is more important. Colorado goes on a run. I think it's McKinnon that is getting that Conn Smythe because he's one of the, but he is right now, I think, on a different level than some of these other players.
And it's wild, the different angles that people come at me on social media. And I'll be honest, I asked for it. But I have Lightning fans the last couple weeks coming at me and me having to preface, A, I've done work for the Lightning organization. B, I have a fucking signed Lightning jersey in my condo, FYI. Nikita Kucherov is one of my favorite players in the NHL. But they can't get past the point that I continue to hold firm on. It's Nathan McKinnon's time for a variety of reasons. Number one, he's never won the award, which I don't care if you disagree or agree. That plays an impact in the award. I'm sorry, it just does. Unless you're Taylor Hall from a couple years ago where you blow away the field. And I get Kucherov's doing that, but the way McKinnon's playing, I think it's good enough to win this award. Number two, you got to be mindful of who votes on this award. It's the Pro Hockey Writers Association. And the third thing is All-Star Weekend. We laugh at that shit, but that whole little thing that whatever that was for Nikita Kucherov will play an impact in the voting for people. The majority of them were in the building to watch that display of whatever it was from Kucherov. So that's why I think McKinnon is going to win this award. I think with McDavid, it's almost at a LeBron part where it's like every year he should win the award and he has to elevate and be better and better. Like he had to get 170 points, in my opinion, this year. He didn't have a great, by his standards, first half. And that's what I think is going to make him lose his award. And Matthews, I think if he gets a 70 goals, I really think he has a legitimate shot. But I would still have McKinnon
you win that debate
too.
You win that debate too. And again, you mentioned the professional writers. Where are a majority of those in? What coast are they in?
Toronto.
East Coast, right?
East,
So I think
yeah.
a lot of them aren't necessarily, again, I stay up and I watch the Colorado games. And I think that's the one thing I can say between McDavid, McKinnon, Kucherov, Matthews. McKinnon is the most consistent and he is the biggest game breaker, I believe, where you notice him the most and he takes over majority of the games, majority of the times. The other guys, yes, they put up points and Matthews scores some big goals, but I think consistency is key. And look at the run that Kucherov's on right now. He's still only 3 points ahead of McKinnon. McKinnon is getting it done, but he's scoring big goals, big points. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's easy to give it to Kucherov, but again, I'm going to concede that debate to you and saying, yeah, I mean, you know what? You changed my mind. I'll give it to McKinnon. I don't have a vote. They asked me if I wanted to vote, and I'm like, no, because knowing them, they'll try to, they'll hack into my account, find my vote, and figure out I voted for like Wayne Simmons for the Rocket.
Oh, there's always one idiot that's so out of left field. But like even with McDavid, I get it. He's having an incredible year, but how can you justify, let's say McDavid gets 106 assists, which he's on pace for right now, but he finishes with less points than Kucherov and McKinnon. I don't know how you justify it, considering what we've seen in the past when he wins Hart trophies. Like there's a bar and he continues to raise it. It's McDavid's fault. I just think it's always a spirited debate. I think Austin Matthews has been great this year. Having said that, I still think he's a smidget under what McKinnon and Kucherov are doing. And again, the last 11, 12 games are going to impact this race quite a bit. But I think you look at the betting numbers. Last I looked, overwhelming favorite, Nathan McKinnon minus 235. But if Kucherov continues to put up 4-point nights, obviously he's going to make up some ground. But that's just my general thinking of the award and the precedents and everything we've seen in the last couple of years, why I think it's going to be Nathan McKinnon this season.
Yeah, but I'm checking it right now. Kucherov has 44 more points than second place Braden Point on his team.
Pretty
Like,
fucking good. Yeah.
that is next level stuff, right? Someone's got to jump on that cookie train, but that just shows he's
Maybe that's
elevating his
you.
game. But I watch I watch a lot of Colorado's game and just the big goals he scores at the big moments of the game, and he almost has a pulse. Okay, now it's time for me now to turn it on. Okay, we need a goal here. Okay, big power play. We got to score a big. He now has that pulse of the game where he decides what he wants to do when he needs to do it, regardless of who he's playing with.
Did you see 50 in Toronto was trending on X on Thursday?
Yeah, I didn't click it yet. What does that mean? 50 in Toronto.
Dude, Zach Hyman scored 2 goals last night. He has 48. Who is Toronto playing on Saturday night?
Yeah. And I'll tell you this. I was the first member of the media to say he's getting his 5+ million, and people called me crazy. They called me this and this, and he's gonna crap out at year 2 of the deal. You can't give him 8 years. And I said, the way that he scores goals, it's almost effortless. He gets to the hard areas. He gets in. He is the best forechecker in the league and turning pucks over to make plays. There's no reason why he can't get 40 plus. I didn't say 50. I said 40 plus. So for me, that's a big miscue by the old management. We'll at least mention that, because he is a guy that
I don't know what you're
he
talking
can
about.
drive a line, but he can get those goals in the dirty areas. And I was more so focused on him in the playoffs. Those are the type of players you need. And he's on a whole different level. So I don't think anyone anticipated this great of a season by Hyman, but again, he's earned his contract, and now it looks like it's at a discount the way that he's playing.
I wonder what it would pay on Saturday to see Hyman get to 50 and Matthews to 60, because Matthews is at 57, should be at 58. Goal called back of the Hattie the other night. But I wonder what that parlay would pay, and that's probably something I might play, because if you don't think Zach Hyman is scoring at least 1 goal on Saturday, you're absolutely crazy. Like, watching Edmonton snap it around on Thursday, I feared for the rest of the league. I was exchanging texts with Adam Henrique. I'm like, far cry from Anaheim, dude. Like, I think he's enjoying life on the third line there with the Edmonton Oilers. That team is stacked. They have depth. They can beat you from all angles. They got the goaltending. I'm really looking forward to this game. Like, it really is a measuring stick game. I know Mitch Marner's not playing. I still vividly remember back in January, the Leafs were up 2-0 in that game in Edmonton, let it slip away. I think they match up well against Edmonton, and in history, the last couple of years, they actually play pretty good D against them. So I'm very curious to see how they come out in that game.
Yeah, Edmonton's a team that really pushes the pace now too, but it's a new looked Edmonton Oilers team, as now they have that commitment to defense where they're not necessarily blowing the zone. They're insulating the goaltending. They're not really giving up that high danger spot too. So if I'm Toronto, my only game plan is I'm Sheldon Keefe. I'm writing a big 0 next to penalties. You do not want to give these guys any power plays. I would be like, I'm fining anyone $1,000 if you take a dumb penalty, because that's a team that can kill you. And you're just looking at all those weapons that they have. And, we know what Rico's capable of too. And in that third line, he's going to be scoring some big goals in the playoffs. And so I just want to remind the viewers that this was my Stanley Cup playoff previewed here. So it's going to be a good litmus test too. So Toronto's going through some adversity right now with Marner being out. But again, as we mentioned earlier in the show, they have some other guys stepping up. I think it's going to be a battle of the depth. I want to see what McMahon's going to do against maybe a third pairing. I want to see, how Domi and Bertuzzi are going to handle Ekholm and Nurse on the board. So I think for Toronto, if there's one area in their game I think they got to really improve on, is their D zone on the wall. A lot of teams are cycling on them. You saw that Philadelphia game, really getting to those dirty areas, pushing them off pucks. That's something I think you can be working on. But once you get healthy, that is a weakness that if they turn that into at least an average, not necessarily a strength, they're going to have a lot of success. But am I picking the over? I think we can all sit here and bet. Yeah, we're picking the over for the game on Saturday.
I'm going to put you on the spot right now. What's the better feat? Austin Matthews getting to 70 goals or Connor McDavid to 100 assists?
I want to say Matthews, but it's so hard to score goals. I go back to my days in Atlanta. I had 37 points with 22 games left. I'm looking at houses I'm going to buy in Toronto because I'm like, I'm on pace for 60 points. I'm going to be making, 4.4. I finished with 39 points. I got 2 points in the last 22 games. And I'm like, what the hell happened? The game just shifts from like 65 to 82. It's just so much tight checking. I remember getting slashed and tripped and looking at the ref, and he gives me the old Michael Cera where he looks at me, then he looks away. Like there's no penalty calls. It's harder to get to the net. You're more banged up. It's going to be tough for him to get 70. So if he gets to 65, that's still an amazing feat. Again, McDavid could turn into the Apple monster. He has been the cookie monster too. So it's a lot easier to get assists at this point of the year than goals. So if it was 65, I would say, yeah, it's more likely he's going to get 65. 70 is going to be tough. But again, Matthews has surprised a lot of people this year. I would not be surprised to see him, get closer to 70 than 65.
You didn't answer the question, Stu.
McDavid.
You think it's the better
Yeah.
feat and
Yeah,
McDavid
100
gets 100
cents.
assists?
I know you need some tips, so if you're going to put your $5 down, put it on that.
Yeah, it's such a unique conversation because again, weird shit trends on a daily basis on Twitter, and I saw this trending the other day, and it's like a unique debate where it's like you have two freaks of nature. You have Austin Matthews who scores like it's going out of style, but then you have Connor McDavid who is too good for this league. Like he makes it look too easy. And this is the highest league you can play professional hockey at. And this guy is just begging for another league to play in, and he just can't. And that's why it's so hard to quantify. Like, I think both records are so unique and so amazing. And by default, I think I go with Matthews just because of how hard it is to score in this league. I really do. Because I think you look at the numbers, he has 31 more goals than Connor McDavid right now.
So you're saying Matthews is going to get it or McDavid's?
No, it's not about is. What do I think is the better feat to pull off? Harder feat to pull off? Is it 70 goals or is it 6 or is it 100?
Oh, it's harder. It's going to be harder to get 70 goals. I'll tell you that. And,
yeah.
And I think there's an underappreciation. I'll say this, there's an underappreciation for Matthews, what he's doing, because there's so many superstars in the league, and McDavid, McKinnon, even on this own team, and Marner and Nylander. He is on pace. He's at a better scoring pace than Alex Ovechkin to break Gretzky's record. So yes, we'll check back in 4 or 5 years. Health is a factor.
Yeah.
Is he going to slow down? Is there injuries and all that? But that is what he's done at this point of his career. So, that's why you see, I always check in on the trends. That's been trending a little bit. Is he the GOAT? Is he the greatest Leaf of all time? Is it too early to crown him that? And I say no, because what he's done so far, it hasn't been done in history. So he's either going to be known as, the next Gretzky or Ovechkin with regards to scoring, or he's going to be Mike Bossy just due to longevity or whatever. He wasn't able to keep at that pace, or his career ended a little bit earlier. So I hope it's in that other debate, but he'll be going down as one of the greatest goal scorers of all time. And to do it in this era where it's so hard to score goals, it's tighter checking. The goalies are bigger. We're calling back off sides every 2 flipping seconds. He's going down as one of the greatest scorers of all time. And I think we got to appreciate that a little bit more. And everyone's saying, well, did he win a Stanley Cup? Did he do this, do that? From a goal scoring standpoint, he is one of the best of all time.
Lonnie Bahanis 1, Austin Matthews number 2. That's my pecking order for Leafs greats.
I was going to say Robida. You have a whole island named after him, no?
Wait, that's very true. We got to get Stefan Robida on this show one day. That would be tremendous. Every All-Star needs a sidekick to support them, just like every Wendy's meal needs a 6-piece of nuggets. And right now, Wendy's is teaming up with Daily Faceoff Fantasy to bring you weekly prizes like free nuggets, burgers, and more. Start adding a 6-piece to your Wendy's order for just $3.49 today. Sign up for Daily Faceoff, sponsored by Wendy's and the Wendy's app. So a back-to-back this weekend. You're home to Edmonton on Saturday, at Carolina on Sunday. Have yet to win a game against either of these two teams this season. 0-1 against Edmonton, 0-1 against the Canes. I'm very curious to see the next performance here, the encore, if you will, for Domi, Matthews, and Bertuzzi after what they put forth against the Capitals, combining for 10 points. I'm very curious to see how they do this weekend. Yeah,
there's a little bit of tell on Matthews, right? He rarely gets, excited out there, but he just seems like he's a little bit more excited when his line mates have success than normal, right? So I think he generally enjoys playing with Bertuzzi and these guys, because these are guys that go in, they wear their hearts on the sleeves, they're getting it on the forecheck, they're not afraid to muck it up. they're making almost his games easier from a physical standpoint. Yes, Marner gets him the puck. Nyes was great in getting pucks off the wall, but it just seems a little bit of a different vibe playing with these two other guys too. So yes, extremely small sample size, but I like the fact that they are rotating lines and giving different looks, because you're going to have to switch things up in the playoffs. It is a chess match, and you can't do the exact same thing and expect different results. So if that Nyes, Marner, Matthews line isn't working for a game or two, you have to switch it up. So you need to know what works. So having this in your back pocket, where it's not just Matthews still continuing to score his goals, but you're getting Bertuzzi and Domi involved, that is a big, big win. Because again, if Domi and Bertuzzi are off, I think they need them to have primary roles in this playoffs. I think it's big and very important for their success. So I like it. Let's check back in 2-3 games. But if we know Keefe, he might be switching things up a lot sooner than later. But so far, so good. I like what I've seen from the trio.
I like it. I'm convinced that Keefe has a blender in the room that he puts like every player's name who's in the lineup in the blender on a shift by shift basis. Like even on the bench, he'll bring it, plug it in, and he's like, "Okay, that's the line combinations I'm going with." Like we talked about this yesterday. I can't put any stock in this new top line. It's going to change. Like, would I be shocked if Sunday in Carolina they have different lines if they don't fare well against Edmonton? Probably not. And I get what you're saying, but I think sometimes it's just too much. And then you get to the playoffs and guys are like, "Well, I don't feel great about myself. I got no chemistry with these guys." So it's part of the conversation for sure. I'm curious too, Stu, about the goaltending. The Leafs haven't practiced, I guess, a late practice here on this Friday before they get set for their game against Edmonton. How would you deploy Samsonov and Woll this weekend? They're gonna play one each.
I probably have Woll play the first game, right? He didn't play. He's been out for a little bit, right? He hasn't
He
played
played Wednesday against
Wednesday.
Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I think you just rotate the two of them back and forth, and then maybe that last 5-6 game segment, maybe give a guy probably 3 or 4 of those games, right? But I think you got to get the confidence of both up right now and not have a bona fide number one. And it's easy to say, yeah, give it to Samsonov or Woll, but Woll, he was almost over the hump of being the number one before he got hurt. And I don't want to throw him into the mix too heavy right away, because like we said, coming back from that injury, it takes time. So I bet you he's not 110% right now. So give them some rotation, let them go back and forth. And then now in 2-3 weeks, really say, okay, you know what, who do we anoint the guy to start off in playoffs, give him a couple extra starts. But the one thing I could tell you, if this team is making a run, I think you're going to see both guys, and I think you're going to have to see both guys playing at a high level. So it's a good problem to have, because you have a 1A, 1B, but someone's going to have to get hot, and I don't see it happening probably till round 2 if that's where they get to.
And I will say too, there's going to be a point in time where I think Martin Jones plays mop-up duty. He'll get a couple games down the stretch where they try to rest both their guys heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm with you. I go Woll on Saturday against Edmonton, and I give Samsonov the call on Sunday, maybe looking for a bit of retribution after what transpired last Saturday night, where they blew that game 4-2 lead late and then lost in a shootout to the Carolina Hurricanes. Of course, they're going to be at PNC Arena on Sunday for that one. Is it still a story for you when the Leafs face off against Freddie Anderson? Because to me, it seems like the Canes always avoid this matchup. Like even last weekend, it was Kochetkov. But as you know, I play a lot of fantasy hockey. I watch a lot of hockey. Anderson played on Thursday against Philadelphia. Kochetkov's going to go, you would think, presumably tonight against the Washington Capitals, which would line up Freddie Anderson on home ice on Sunday against the Maple Leafs. Of note, 4 career appearances against the Leafs since leaving, 11 goals against, 3 straight losses. So I look forward to it. I don't know if you do.
Well, you look forward to it because you just want to tweet NHL revenge. Trust me.
Yeah, exactly.
But the one thing I could tell you with Freddie Anderson, he probably doesn't care. And I don't think I think he's moved on, and I think
We know he doesn't care.
you've seen his stoic personality, where I don't think he thinks about it. He's probably on to greener pastures in his mind. But if I'm Toronto, at this point, it's not about revenge or whatever. It's about just collecting points, but setting the tone and getting your identity ready for the playoffs. So against Carolina, again, I don't think they care who they're playing. They want to now say, hey, we had a tough end to our game the previous week against them. We got to shore up all those negatives that we have. We got to play good team defense. We got to collapse. We got to get pucks out. We got to have good discipline, all those little things. That's what I'm seeing. Are they shoring up what they did not do against them previous games? So I think that's, if I'm the coach, I'm focusing on that. It's not about the result. It's about having a better process. So Am I putting money on that game? I'm not a betting guy, so it's too tough. I would not touch that game because if Freddie's in the net, I could see him standing on his head. So again, if you're betting out there, you got your DoorDash and you're sitting inside watching,
Nice.
I wouldn't touch this game. I wouldn't touch it.
Good save there, Stewie. We do love DoorDash here on this podcast. I just want to double check something because I know somebody in the chat was saying that Mark Masters just put up a picture. Oh, yeah, there it is. Matt Murray's on the ice ahead of Leafs practice. Here we go again, man.
He's
Oh,
back.
holy fuck, man. That's the last thing I need to talk about is Matt Murray, man. It's just okay. So just seeing some notes of practice. Ryan Reeves back on the ice, got the finger in the eye from Delorier. Matt Murray on the ice ahead of Leafs practice. I guess skating with some of the. I see Austin Matthews shooting on him, so that's always scary. Max Domi working with the top power play unit ahead of practice, and Liljegren remains up alongside Matthews, Tavares, and Nylander on PP1. So there's the latest in Leafs practice.
Yeah, I'm looking at Murray. He's moving kind of gingerly, but anyways, that's neither here nor
Of
there.
course he
I was
is.
about to say he looks amazing out there, but again, remember he's under contract and he's a prideful guy, right? Some guys in his
Oh.
situation, you would not hear from him. He'd be on Robida Island drinking a margarita, but he's a prideful guy. He wants to come back and play. It's within his right. So again, there's a three-headed monster right now. I don't not see there's any scenario that he's part of this group, but I really respect the fact that, hey, I'm healthy enough to get on the ice. Yeah, I don't care about the headlines. I understand the market that we're in. I'm going to get criticized for getting out of a two-pad stack by an idiot like Stewart, but I still want to come back. I'm a prideful player. I respect Matt Murray.
I do too. I also respect the fact that Kyle Dubas is going to call him this summer. He's a free agent and he's going to end up back in Pittsburgh. They're going to play Kumbaya. They won a couple cups there. Congratulations to them. And Kyle Dubas is throwing that team into the ground, which is great to see from the Maple Leafs perspective. It's time for the Great Clips Inbox question of the day. With more than 4,400 hair salons throughout the United States and Canada, Great Clips is the world's largest hair salon brand and official hair salon of the NHL. Salons are locally owned and operated and open 7 days a week. Your time is valuable. Use the Great Clips check-in app. See the wait time. Check in on your phone and get your haircut when you want. Alex Del Toro writes in, would Wilson have done that if Reeves was playing? It's a pretty good question.
If he was playing.
Yeah, because Reeves wouldn't play against Washington.
So the one thing I could tell you is Reeves is probably the toughest guy in the NHL. But Tom Wilson is Tom Wilson because I don't think he is afraid of anybody. Does he pick his spots? Yes, 110%. But I don't think he's afraid where, hey, you know what? I'm not going to do this because this guy might come and get me. He is a big, big man. I'm on the ice with Tom Wilson this summer. He looks like a juggernaut. Like he is huge. And even if there's a guy that's tougher out them, he's bigger and strong enough where he can hold a guy out and not get beat up. So I think for him, that's why I think it's accidental, because knowing that there could be some retribution down the line. But I could honestly sit here and say Tom Wilson has made some questionable hits, questionable plays, but I would consider him an honest player and an honest person. So whether or not Reeves was on there, I'm still going to stay with it being accidental. But at the same time, accidents happen. You have to be accountable for your actions. You have to be accountable for your stick. So if there is a suspension, I'm not going to be, waving my hand at that, saying, "Hey, what's going on?" Hey, that comes with the territory. So he crossed the line with regards to the league. So I understand if he does get a suspension, but I can sit here and tell you, as the person that I know, he's an honest player.
We got a part two to this question too. Max writes in, will Reeves or Gregor start game one of the playoffs, in your opinion?
I say Ryan Reeves. And, since he's come back from his injury, he has played really well. And not just him, I think the line as a whole, where they have a different element, right? Where we talked about me being the schools to Christmas pass, doing nothing out there, just killing the clock. They're accomplishing something in their shifts, whether it's getting in on a forecheck, getting the puck out, having a big hit, sustaining a little bit of offense, and they're not just giving the top three lines a break while they're out there. So again, their Corsi, I think, has been great, but from the eye test standpoint, they've been a lot more effective. And again, there is that intimidation factor. When you have a player like Reeves, you're going to play 2 inches taller, 20 pounds heavier. If I'm making those decisions, yep, he's in game one.
I love you covering all grounds with analytics and then eye tests, like just everything
Big analytic
covered.
guy. Yeah, me.
Yeah, huge. Everything. Hey, wasn't it you had that conversation with a couple years ago? Who was that guy in Toronto who wanted the Leafs to have employ a strategy where they played like 4D and 1 forward or whatever?
I will
Or 3?
never mention that person's name. If I had one nemesis, man, don't get me started. Do not get me started.
There was a cat in Toronto, and I think Stewie and I were
Oh,
still working over at Sportsnet, and we did Hockey Central one time, and we brought this up, and Stewie's like, "It's a phenomenal idea. Let's."
wasn't it 3D? No, I
Yeah, it
think it
was
was.
3D and 2 forwards.
Get me out of here. Oh man, get me out. Fire them into the sun.
A lot of big brains. A lot of big brains in the NHL these days,
Oh, man.
for good
Yeah.
and for bad. The Betano wrap-up presented by Betano.ca. The game starts now, 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Major announcement, Betano is the official partner of Copa America 2024, taking the beautiful game to new heights in the Americas. Join Betano in their journey of passion, unity, and unforgettable football moments. Couple plays for the weekend. Um, I'm looking at the under between the Leafs and the Oilers. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I think both teams realize the Stanley Cup playoffs just around the corner. Having said that, I think you almost have to play the Austin Matthews anytime goal, McDavid anytime goal, and Zach Hyman anytime goal. And again, if you want to get wild, which I probably will try to do on Saturday, why don't you parlay together Hyman has scored 2 goals to get to 50, Matthews to get a hat trick to get to 70. I think that pay would probably be pretty damn good.
Yeah, you put 20 cents on that, you might walk away with a couple $100 there too. But
Yeah.
for me, I think it's going to be a high-paced game. I think nerves are going to be going there. There's going to be a lot of pace and speed, so I could see a lot of tripping and hooking penalties. So I'm going to say there's going to be probably about 8 power plays. So I could see both teams maybe going 2 for 3 or 2 for 4. So it's going to be the over. It's got to be the over. It's Saturday night. It's hockey night in Canada, right? If I'm not mistaken, it's going to be a big game. A lot of eyes on that too, and a lot of them now want to show, hey, you know what? We are contenders, not pretenders in our respective divisions. So Austin Matthews is going to score. I believe that. I believe that's the case. Never bet against that. But Hyman, how many times now has a Toronto person come in and got a goal? So I'm going with there. And again, I'm not sure if there's a prop bet for video tribute. I think we can all guarantee he's getting a video tribute as well.
I would give
Has he
him a
already
video
gotten one?
tribute.
He's already gotten one, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Give him another one.
Give him another one. Why not? Give them 7 a game. Who cares? And I said 70 goals, 60 goals is the chase here for Austin Matthews. He has 57. So looking forward to that. Stu, excellent job today. Enjoy your weekend, buddy.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
There you have it, Anthony Stewart. Thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Again, Carter Hutton will be in the mix coming up on Monday. We'll get set for next week as the Maple Leafs get closer and closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And many thanks as well to producer Vic. For Anthony Stewart, I'm Nick Alberga. Have a great weekend. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.